So, welcome to this press briefing, and Prime Minister, dear Mateusz, welcome to Stockholm. So good to have you here.
Thank you.
Sweden and Poland have a lot of common interests, as we all know, and there's a lot of potential for increased cooperation, not least when it comes to our shared commitment to support Ukraine and build an even stronger European security. But allow me first to say just a few words about the Swedish and the European response following the disastrous earthquake in Turkey and Syria last week. This is a tragedy of historic proportions. As of today, we count over 33,000 dead and countless of wounded and homeless families. Sweden provides help in two different ways. We are leading the joint EU efforts, and we are providing bilateral assistance, personnel, material, aid and humanitarian support. As acting presidency of the Council, the immediate priority is to ensure that the European assistance meets the needs of the affected communities. We want the people of Turkey and Syria to be able to count on our support for relief and the early recovery. Just before the European Council last week, we therefore announced a donors conference to be organized together with the European Commission in March to mobilize funds from the international community in coordination with Turkish authorities, of course. The Swedish Foreign Minister is in close contact with his Turkish colleague and with the Commission to organize this conference. In terms of bilateral support, Thursday night, Sweden sent a Boeing C-17 transport aircraft to the Turkish city of Adana with a group of search and rescue professionals, including search dogs and medical professionals from the Swedish Armed Forces. They now operate in a major international help operation. Further substantial Swedish support will follow. The planning for this is conducted as we speak. During today's meeting, the Prime Minister and I have mainly discussed European security, of course. We share a strong commitment to Ukraine's defense, freedom, and Ukraine's European integration. Sweden recognizes and deeply appreciates Poland as one of the very leading countries supporting Ukraine's defense, and the fact that Poland also has taken a huge responsibility for Ukrainian women and children fleeing the war. It has been extremely valuable to listen to your perspectives on how to best continue our common support. The Prime Minister and I both have the privilege to meet with President Zelensky in Brussels just a few days ago. Once again, it became obvious that Ukraine belongs in the EU. We appreciate the forward-leaning conclusions from the Council on Ukraine as a candidate country. The two of us also share the conviction that the EU needs a strong transatlantic link and close cooperation between the EU and NATO. The NATO accession of Finland and Sweden was of course also on the agenda today. Sweden and Finland will be security providers as future members. Having all countries in our region as part of the alliance will increase regional cooperation on security and defense, thereby making NATO stronger and our region safer. An important priority for the Swedish EU presidency is to improve European long-term competitiveness and productivity. We appreciate Poland as an important partner in this task, not least when it comes to the importance of strong transatlantic cooperation also in the field of economics. Finally, we recognize that trade between Sweden and Poland is steadily growing, with some 500 plus Swedish companies now operating in Poland, creating over 100,000 jobs, investing in production as well as in research and development. There's a lot of potential for even more hands-on cooperation between our two countries, for example, in developing new nuclear powers. Thanks for being here today, Prime Minister, and now I leave the floor to you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister, dear Ulf. Thank you for your kind invitation and for this excellent opportunity to exchange opinions on so many strategic topics. Well, like some say that good times create weak people and hard times create strong people. The same principle may apply in politics. In these difficult times, Europe is rising to the occasion, or at least some European countries are rising to the occasion. Russia wanted to bring Ukraine to its knees in a few days or in a few weeks a year ago. Ukraine has been defending itself for almost a year. Russia wanted to break European unity. Europe is united more than ever. In moments of geopolitical breakthrough, one cannot stand aside. You have to choose either freedom or tyranny, either democracy or imperialism, either civilization or barbarism. Sweden is well known for keeping its distance from world turmoil. And that is why today's attitude of Sweden is proof that the war in Ukraine is not the temporary problem, but a harbinger of a new era of danger. Naive optimists would like to see NATO as a debating club. But NATO must return to being a force ready to defend the world order and ready to defend peace. And I'm also certain that together with Sweden and Finland in NATO, NATO is going to be stronger, and NATO is going to be, as Ulf just said, a security provider for the entire eastern flank. There is no better way to strengthen than to acquire new, strong allies. And we spoke about this at length today. Sweden is a country without which the new security architecture will quickly encounter new problems. Poland is ready to take joint responsibility defending NATO's eastern flank, but we need allies in the north and in the south. The admission of Sweden to NATO not only strengthens our military potential, but also sends a clear message to Russia: you will not break Europe to pieces. And let me emphasize this very clearly. Poland is in favor of Sweden and Finland joining NATO at best simultaneously. Russia has chosen to return to the past. Europe must choose the future. Russia evoked worst demons of the 20th century. Many people would not have realized, but actually colonialism, imperialism, or nationalism, they have been evoked in Russia, and this is now the foundation of ideology of Ruski Mir in Russia. We don't want a new Cold War or a new arms race, but the decision to avoid this scenario rests with Russia. For 30 years, some countries believed that prosperity could be built thanks to good contracts with Russia. We believe in European independence of Russian fossil fuels and to other natural resources. In a way, we support strategic autonomy and all the projects which are going to strengthen independence of the entire European Union and of our economy. The pandemic and the war have shaken Europe greatly, but they are an opportunity to find a new center of gravity and a geopolitical axis on which we can base the future. And together with Ulf, we spoke about this new geopolitical axis a bit during our bilateral this morning. North-south interconnectivity, infrastructure, road infrastructure, telecom infrastructure, railways, energy infrastructure, they are all the future dimension of economic growth and prosperity in Europe. Today, Sweden and Poland belong to the zone of clash between civilization. But sooner or later, we may become a bridge between old and new Europe, between the United European Union, and Ukraine, Moldova, and the other countries. And let me also echo what Prime Minister said about Turkey and Syria during those tragic days. Poland also sent our best rescue troops and firemen troops to actually rescue as many people, to save lives of as many people as possible. And I would like to express my deepest condolences to President Erdogan, to the government of Turkey, and to Syrian society about this tragedy. The line connecting Stockholm, Warsaw, and Kiev is today a line of resistance to Russia and a line of freedom, you can say. Tomorrow it may become the development line of a new region, and we spoke about this in the context of Eastern Partnership as well. After 1989, the world had one rule. There is no development without globalization. This rule needs to change. There is no development without security. And together with the United States and Sweden and Finland, Poland is building a new and robust and long-lasting security architecture. And thank you, Ulf, thank you, the Swedish government, for being on the same page with so many, if not all, strategic considerations of nowadays. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And from this on to questions.
Yes, thank you. We can start with our guests from Polsat.
Polsat News. A question for both prime ministers. 5 oil giant companies have reported last year profit exceeding $200 billion. Are there any plans to implement in European Union windfall tax for that? Are you planning to discuss it during European Council next month?
We have already implemented some mechanisms of a windfall tax type. We have implemented rules, we call it revenue cap, through which we were able to take some extraordinary profits of those in particular energy related companies, and we have actually transferred those to the entire population and for companies to lower the bills of energy and bills of gas in Poland. As far as the taxation of multinationals, global corporations is concerned, we are very much in favor of this, and this is why we were supportive in the context of the discussion of OECD about the base erosion and profit shifting, and about the Pillar 1 and Pillar 2. And we still hope that those two solutions will be implemented in tandem, because this would mean a fair and just taxation across the globe.
Well, as you know, there is already a framework in place providing the possibilities for countries to do that, and we are actually applying to that. And besides from that, in Sweden, we lower the bills basically by refunding quite substantial money from last year's extremely high bills as well. So we do that in a more national way in terms of fees that have been gathered through the Swedish consumers.
Thank you. We have a question from Polska Agencja Prasowa.
Polska Agencja Prasowa. What's your expectation of the 10th sanction packages against Russia? As reported by the media, there's no proposals like sanction on Rosatom, sanction for the kidnapping Ukrainian children, exclusion of Gazprom from the carbon dioxide emission, or diamonds.
Well, basically, we're very much in favor, of course, of this 10th package. Absolutely necessary. Now, there's a very united view on that. And then you can always discuss exactly what to include in it. The Rosatom topic is one of those, where I know that several countries are arguing very firmly to include them as well. And of course, there are obstacles to that. There are always obstacles. But I foresee a very balanced package when it's finished.
Sweden and Poland we are on the same hymn sheet with regard to the 10th sanction package. We want it to be robust. We want it to be as harsh as possible. However, to work it out, it needs two to tango. It needs those countries who are not so eager to enhance sanctions, and those countries which are eager to enhance sanctions. And this is sometimes the lowest common denominator. But even with this, I believe that the 10th sanction package is going to be robust and is going to send appropriate strong signals to Russia, to the Kremlin, that we are not going to give up, we are not going to surrender to Russia's pressures.
And to add on to that, if you learn anything during presidency, is that you learn how to find common denominators, good compromises, because otherwise you won't make anything happen at all. So don't allow the best to be the opposition to the good, so to speak. That's a very important lesson. Another lesson is that there are other means as well. I would say the frozen assets, the topic of frozen assets is one of these main topics. There are huge amount of monies that needs to be handled in the correct way, no doubt about that. We need to be pretty united, no doubt about that, but there are a lot of money that should be used for rebuilding and reconstruction of Ukraine, not to be go back to Russia.
Let me add just one sentence to this. Poland is very much in favor of confiscating, seizing Russian assets of Russian Federation and Russian oligarchs, and exactly as Ulf said, this could be used for rebuilding, reconstruction of Ukraine, but also for, in the context of European citizens, for lowering bills of energy for all European citizens.
Thank you. We have a question from the Swedish radio, Ekot.
Mr. Prime Minister, you mentioned what difference Swedish and Finnish membership of NATO would mean for the Baltic area and so on. Now the situation is that Turkey is still not admitting Sweden and Finland. How do you assess this situation? What does it mean for the security? And what are you prepared to do to try to nudge Turkey, so to speak, in the right direction?
Poland and Turkey have good relationships, if not very good relationships. So we are using those to persuade with all our forces, our Turkish friends and partners, to accept Sweden and Finland as quickly as possible, and to accept them simultaneously, because it is really, it could be really a game changer from the security point of view of this part of the world. So that's one aspect in the role of our role, but also. In every talk, in every conversation with our American friends, we do highlight this very topic as well, because the role of the United States here could be pivotal. We know that the Turkish government is applying for some American jets, F-16 in particular, and maybe this could be the platform of common denominator, so to say again, and this could bring Turkey closer to this appropriate decision.
Well, basically, I very much appreciate the Polish attitude, and there are many things to appreciate about Poland. But if I mention just two things, first, what I did say, the enormous help from Poland to Ukraine. You simply cannot even measure it, I would say, in comparison to many other countries. Enormous, and that impresses all of us, I would say. And of course, secondly, the very clear and early and firm support for the Swedish and Finnish accession, early in ratifying, very clear in support, also in contact with our Turkish friends. So I very much appreciate that.
And the last question, TT.
Mr. Prime Minister, regarding the military support to Ukraine, what does Poland hope that Sweden will contribute when it comes to tanks?
We spoke about this with Ulf today. I was on the meeting with President Zelensky a couple of days ago, and clearly what is badly needed these days, it's first ammunition, as much ammunition as possible. And of course, with regard to tanks, I believe that the coalition of Leopard tanks is going to grow. And I hope that Sweden, having some Leopard tanks, if my memory serves me right, more than 100, will also be able to deliver some Leopard tanks to Ukraine. Poland would have delivered already 250 tanks of post-Soviet type, but on top of those we are going to deliver 60 tanks, quite modernized tanks to Ukraine. And on top of this, we are going to deliver also some 14 Leopard tanks. So we want to be very active on this front, because we believe that the line of freedom, as I said, is now the battlefield in the Ukraine. And both Sweden and Poland should do everything possible to support our Ukrainian friends in their fight for sovereignty, freedom, and peace in Europe.
Well, obviously, I mean, we all the time we evaluate what Sweden can contribute with, what we do need to have ourselves, and what other partners are providing with. And top of the list has been, as you all know, air defense. We delivered air defense, and artillery. We delivered artillery. And when it comes to tanks, we have very modern CV-90, which is kind of a smaller armored, not a formal tank, but an armored vehicle. And we have delivered quite a few of them as well. So I think we have really tried to bring as good stuff as possible to Ukraine.
Yes.
Oh.
Thank you. We're
Thank you
running
so
out of
much.
time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.